Seeing as like I'm not really worried about self-preservation anymore. Now's a good time to go through the topics which can get me in real hot water. So we're going to return now. We're going to return now to Indigenous Affairs. So I think the best Indigenous prayer I ever heard was done by a woman who I wish the best and actually is sincere about everything she does. Her name is Liz McConnelly. Lovely woman. But she used to work in Indigenous communities as a nurse. She's been at the executive level in the public service and then was moved down to working in insurance. Met her in the dark and morally grey and slightly twisted world of vocational rehabilitation. And I remember this time where we were all sitting around the table and she did the most sincere and heartwarming acknowledgement of country I have ever heard. Right? It's like in that 2 minutes of her talking to the country, doing the acknowledgement of country to these slightly clueless, if I'm honest, slightly clueless white collar professionals. I don't know, who very much were white collar professionals, who didn't know the difference between an acknowledgement of country and a welcome to country, and actually got the two confused, which is quite normal. And for like a minute, I reckon we fucking made some progress there, fixing Indigenous issues, man. Like that sincere acknowledgement of country, it did something. I'm absolutely sure of it. And but I'm going to talk about narcissism in the Indigenous community. So there's this fantastic show called Black Comedy. They do all the shit they say all the stuff which I'm not really meant to be saying. And I think this is something which I'd like them to touch base on. And you see it in some of their sketches. It's been a while since I watched the show, so I can't bring a particular one to mind at this moment. But I just kind of see this a few times, is that we've put so much into how the victim narrative for Indigenous people, and there is a gap. They are victims of circumstance. We're all victims of our birth and our genetics and the social circumstances that we are born into. But they end up... I've seen this within a set of elders in particular. Like Donald McAskill is the perfect example of this. Who's this guy who has literally got a narcissistic personality disorder, is autistic as well, but that's neither here nor there. But to him, his Indigenous identity kind of was like this. It allowed him to be this elder. It allowed him, in his mind, to control and dominate people. And that this is the other thing that people don't talk about with Indigenous culture, is that it is hierarchical, and in some of these communities, those elders, they're cunts, right? I've met some amazing elders, and I'm kind of been in the trenches with this. When I fill out forms, I'm careful. I no longer put non-Indigenous or white, because I've been around enough Indigenous people that I feel, particularly when I'm working with providing forms in an Indigenous context, like an Indigenous healthcare centre or something, I always just don't answer the question anymore, right? Because I feel like when you're working with Indigenous people, to the extent that I have, you end up, depending on the community, becoming one of them. And being seen as one of them. And when you say, I'm not one of you, it can come across as insulting. Even though I do not see myself as Indigenous. Now, with that, you have, every time we do this acknowledgement of country and the acknowledgement of elders past, present and emerging, that's meant to be saying that I acknowledge that there is a separate structure and a separate group of people that we need to work with, okay? And they've organized a political system which is historic to their culture and their group of people. Now, firstly, let's remember that we've, as white people, have changed our political system multiple times. Okay? Heaps of times. And maybe the concept of elders and this system that they used in a prehistoric, in like what's very proudly called Australia's oldest culture, the world's oldest continuous culture, maybe that could be updated, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that every time we do that, the way it's interpreted by a lot of Indigenous people is kind of like a little bit of a fellatio. It's a little bit of white man sucking black man dick. And there is a strong sense of entitlement across the Indigenous community. And not everyone who is Indigenous is like that. I'd say most people who are Indigenous are not like that. Again, when we start talking in generalities, it does not work well. Okay, and we're talking about a very large population of people. In general, I'm more worried about white people not acknowledging the suffering of Indigenous people than a little bit of arrogance from a slogan, from something as silly as an acknowledgement of country. But the way I like to do it, and we're getting back to the really fucking basic shit here, weird shit, niche shit, it's things which bug me and I can say whatever the fuck I want now, is I say, I acknowledge this is the land of the Ngunnawal people, so that's the people who own Canberra, right? So first of all, I acknowledge that this is their land, okay? It says that I've taken the time to fucking research the area and have engaged in the politics of it. So that's a step up from I acknowledge elders past, present and emerging or whatever. So I fucking say that. And secondly, like I'd say, if you're interested in Indigenous Affairs, check up X website or check up X idea. Alright? So it provides education for the topic. Because the reason why we say the acknowledgement of country is to, first of all, keep in circulation the idea that there is significant issues, there is suffering in the Indigenous community and that needs to be alleviated. And we can't forget it, because otherwise people who have been marginalised in the past may become marginalised again. So that's the first reason. The second reason is because, again, to acknowledge that there is a separate organisation of people in Australia apart from the white community. Now there's different separations of people throughout Australia. So there's the Jewish people. They're very pissed off about their synagogues being firebombed and stuff. There's the Australian Christian lobby. They're very big on, the Christians in Australia. There's all these different segments of Australia. So here's the other thing I'm going to say which pisses people off. I do not think that the voice to Parliament was a good idea. I don't think it provides any benefit to the Indigenous community in a significant way, because they already have the ability to organise in our existing political system. They can engage with their local member, they can form coalitions, they can form lobbying groups, they can organise fundraisers, they can create think tanks. There is all the vehicles to be able to engage in our political system are available to Indigenous people. And if there's a significant sympathy to that population, and they're very welcome to be able to engage in those activities. what the Voice to Parliament would do would actually reduce the representation of other groups in Australia, such as the Jewish community, such as the Christian community, such as the Muslim community, all of which see themselves as having a separate identity in addition to being Australian. And I think the Voice to Parliament was just the end result of decades of people just getting carried away with their bullshit and passing around what I call the shit sandwich. It's like, nom 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 nom. I am so intellectual and sophisticated, and I care about these marginalized people, even though I don't know the difference between a welcome to country and acknowledgement of country. Nom 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 nom. Pass to the next person. And worse still is the people who who build an identity around being sympathetic to people, and it just gets retarded. But main thing is, that's my controversial take. If you're going to do an acknowledgement of country, know what fucking land you're on, and secondly, give access to resources which are actually useful to closing the gap or something similar. Have a good evening.